The moment that changed everything didn't happen during the screaming or the accusations or even the collapse that came later. It happened when I realized I was sitting at a folding table next to a coat rack, while my own family toasted themselves 10 feet away under crystal lights. I was 61 years old, wearing a navy blazer I bought at Nordstrom after a 70-hour work week, and I was being hidden like excess luggage. Across the room, champagne glasses clinked in the private VIP section of the Hudson Pier Lounge, one of those converted warehouse spots on the New Jersey waterfront. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs overlooking the Hudson River. The kind of place where parking costs $40 and valet drivers judge you by the badge on your hood. My younger brother, Evan, stood in the center of it all, laughing loud, arms slung around his wife, soaking up attention like a solar panel. Tonight was his company relaunch, a celebration my parents had told everyone was a family triumph. They didn't mention who paid for it. I watched them from the shadows while a DJ played a muted version of something trendy I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed with notifications I ignored. I already knew what they were. Work, always work. My name is Claire Mitchell. I live in a modest 3-bedroom ranch in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My mortgage is paid off. My car has 92,000 miles on it. I don't post photos of champagne. I move freight. For 3 decades, I built a regional logistics company from scratch. Late nights, truck stops off I-80, bad diner coffee, DOT inspections at dawn. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. When my parents needed help after Dad's heart scare in 2014, I wired $180,000 without blinking. When Evan's first startup failed, I covered his payroll for 6 months so his kids wouldn't feel it. Tonight, apparently, I didn't match the aesthetic. My mother, Linda, intercepted me near the velvet rope before I could step into the main area. She looked me up and down, eyes pausing on my sensible shoes. "Claire," she said quietly, tight smile. "We talked about this. The photographers are everywhere. You know how you get when people ask business questions?" I didn't know what that meant. I opened my mouth to respond, but she had already taken my elbow, guiding me past the service corridor, past swinging kitchen doors that smelled like fryer oil and garlic. She stopped beside a metal folding table wedged between the coat check and an exit sign. "One chair. No tablecloth. This'll be more comfortable," she said. "You can still see everything. Just don't draw attention, okay?" That was the shock. Not the insult itself, but how normal it felt. How close I came to sitting down without question. Because when you grow up in a family like mine, being sidelined doesn't feel like cruelty. It feels like gravity. I pulled the chair out. The legs scraped loudly against the concrete floor, a sharp metallic sound that cut through the music for half a second. No one turned around. That was the moment something shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just a quiet internal click, like a breaker flipping. I sat down, but I didn't relax. I didn't take my phone out to scroll. I didn't sip the club soda a server dropped off with a confused look. I watched. From my seat near the coat racks, I had a perfect view of the room's mechanics. Who spoke to whom? Who nodded? Who laughed a little too hard? My father, Richard, stood near the bar, slapping Evan on the back, telling the same story about family resilience he'd told at Thanksgiving. Evan's wife smiled on cue. Investors leaned in. Everyone believed the story being sold. What no one could see was what was happening 60 miles south near the port of Baltimore. At that exact moment, 42 semi-trucks sat idling in a secured yard, engines humming low. Freight valued at just over $4.8 million. Evan's entire relaunch inventory was waiting on one final digital authorization to roll overnight toward distribution centers in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Walmart routes. Best Buy fulfillment. Time-sensitive windows measured in minutes, not hours. And that authorization didn't belong to Evan. It belonged to me. That was the small twist most people never notice. The power you don't announce is the power that lasts. For years, I'd told myself I was helping family. That logistics was just my thing, not worth explaining at dinner tables. I kept my work invisible because it made life easier. But sitting at that folding table, watching my mother adjust my brother's collar like he was a teenager heading to prom, I realized something uncomfortable. They didn't misunderstand my value. They understood it perfectly. They just assumed I would never use it. I stayed in that chair longer than I needed to. Long enough to be certain. long enough to let the pattern finish revealing itself. Across the room, Evan lifted a glass and tapped it with a spoon. The music dipped. People turned. He cleared his throat and launched into a speech about vision, about second chances, about how grateful he was to everyone who believed in him when things were uncertain. He didn't look at me once. That wasn't the painful part. The painful part was watching my parents nod along like none of this had ever been built on my back. I thought about the winter of 2009, when the economy cratered and trucking contracts vanished overnight. I was 45, sleeping 4 hours a night, driving my own rig because I couldn't afford to lay off another driver. I remembered stopping at a pilot travel center in western Pennsylvania at 2 in the morning, eating a microwaved breakfast sandwich, calculating fuel costs on a receipt with a pen that barely worked. I remembered calling my mother from the cab, telling her I might lose everything. She'd said, "Well, you chose this life." I watched her now, wrapped in silk, sipping champagne I had paid for. My phone vibrated again. This time, I didn't ignore it. Dispatch alert, fleet ready, final clearance required. I didn't open the app yet. I just held the phone in my hand and kept watching. Evan stepped down from his little stage to applause. He moved fast after that, toward the VIP corner, toward the people with money. His confidence was loud. It always had been. Growing up, he was the golden child, the talker, the dreamer. I was the one who fixed things quietly. When Evan was 19 and wrapped Dad's Buick around a guardrail, I paid the deductible. When his first business partner sued him, I covered the legal fees. When the bank refused him a bridge loan last year, I signed the guarantee. Every time, the explanation was the same. Family helps family. But help is different from being harvested. Evan's phone rang. I saw it from across the room. He glanced down, frowned, then waved it away, slipping it back into his pocket like it was an inconvenience. I knew that gesture well. It meant he expected the problem to solve itself. That's when my mother noticed me looking. She excused herself from a conversation and walked toward me, heels clicking sharply on the concrete. She leaned down, lowering her voice like I was a child misbehaving in church. "Claire, you look upset," she said. "Can you please not make a face? People are watching." I didn't answer right away. "Is something wrong?" she pressed. I finally looked up at her. "Do you know where the trucks are tonight?" Her smile faltered just slightly. "What trucks?" "The ones carrying Evan's inventory," I said. "The 42 semis staged near Baltimore." Her eyes flicked away. That was answer enough. "Claire," she said carefully, "this isn't the time." It never was. She straightened, smoothing her dress. "Just be supportive. For once." She walked away without waiting for a response. That was the second small twist. The confirmation. I unlocked my phone. The fleet management screen glowed back at me. Maps, timestamps, driver IDs. Years of systems I'd built, refined, protected. A red banner blinked at the top. Awaiting executive authorization. I didn't rush. Rushing leads to mistakes. I scrolled. Verified locations, checked compliance logs. Everything was clean. Perfect, too perfect. My thumb hovered over the command panel. Before I touched anything, Evan appeared in front of me, his smile tight, controlled. "Hey," he said, "why are you hiding back here?" "I wasn't invited up front," I replied. He laughed awkwardly. "Mom's just stressed. Big night." His phone buzzed again. This time he answered it. "What?" he snapped, turning away slightly. "No, that's not possible. Refresh it." His face changed, color draining, jaw tightening. He ended the call and looked at me, not with confusion, but suspicion. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. "I haven't done anything," I said truthfully. "Yet, you're listed as the final authorizer," he said. "Dispatch is saying the fleet is paused." Paused. Such a polite word. I leaned back in the chair. "Yes." He stared at me. "Unpause it." "I can't." "Yes, you can." I shook my head. "I won't." His voice rose. "Claire, don't do this here." "Do what?" I asked. "Make a decision?" My parents were moving closer now, drawn by tension like heat. "You're embarrassing us," my father hissed. "Fix it." That word again. "Fix it." I tapped the screen. Executive override initiated. A confirmation box popped up. "Reason for action?" I typed slowly. Breach of trust. Then I pressed confirm. The screen flashed. Status update. Fleet locked. Return to base. My phone vibrated once. Final. Evan's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around like someone waiting for a punch that hadn't landed yet. "You can't do that," he said. Louder now. I just did. My mother gasped. "Claire, think about what you're doing." "I am." I stood up. "I've been thinking about it for years." That's when the room shifted. A man stepped out of the crowd. Tall, gray-haired, wearing a sport coat that cost more than my first truck. I recognized him instantly. Harold Whitman. Private equity. Old money. The kind of investor who didn't raise his voice because he never had to. He ignored Evan entirely and looked at me. "There you are," he said. "I've been asking where the logistics lead was all night." Silence spread outward like a spill. "You're Claire Mitchell," he continued. "The one who actually moves things." I nodded. He glanced at the folding table. "Strange place for you." Evan laughed nervously. "Harold, this is just family stuff." Harold didn't look at him. "Is it true you halted the shipment?" he asked me. "Yes." "Why?" I held his gaze. "Because I was being asked to finance a future I wasn't allowed to participate in." Harold's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He turned to Evan. "Did you disclose the proxy clause?" Evan froze. "What clause?" my father asked. I pulled an envelope from my bag and placed it on the table. Inside was the document Evan had slipped me earlier under the excuse of wedding planning paperwork. I hadn't mentioned it yet. I hadn't needed to. Harold opened it, read, slowly. His jaw tightened. "That," he said calmly, "is a hostile takeover disguised as a marriage." The words landed like thunder. "I'm out," Harold continued, "effective immediately." Evan's face collapsed. "You can't—" "I just did," Harold said. He looked at me again. "Smart move stopping the trucks." Then he walked away. No shouting, no scene. Just absence. My parents stared at me like I was someone they'd never met. Evan looked smaller, lost. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel responsible for fixing it. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, the way I always had. Habit doesn't disappear just because your life changes overnight. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen, standing barefoot on cold tile, watching the light come up over my backyard. No missed calls this time. No emergencies. No one asking me to clean up a mess they created. By 9 a.m., the news had already broken. Evan's relaunch was delayed indefinitely. Investors pulled back. Contracts unraveled. Without logistics, the vision was just talk. The trucks didn't stay idle. I rerouted them that afternoon. Emergency supplies, donated capacity, real work that mattered. Drivers texted thank yous. Not because I demanded loyalty, but because respect travels both directions. My family didn't call to apologize. They called to negotiate. That told me everything. Here's the truth most people don't like to admit. Exploitation often wears the face of family, and it survives only as long as the person being used confuses obligation with love. I didn't destroy anything that night. I simply stopped pretending I was replaceable. If this story made you uncomfortable, ask yourself why. And if you've ever been the one holding everything together, quietly, remember this. Power doesn't announce itself. It withdraws. Like, share, and tell me in the comments. When did you realize your kindness had limits?